Nobody expects to be murdered in their sleep by something they can't even see. Deep in Cherokee territory, when darkness falls and sickness takes hold, an ancient evil takes flight. The Raven Mocker doesn't just kill you. It steals the years you had left to live, adding them to its own twisted existence while you fade away, unable to fight back against an enemy you can't touch or see. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most terrifying creatures in Native American folklore, a witch so powerful that even other witches fear it. The Cherokee people call it Kâ'lanû Ahkyeli'skï, which translates to the death spirit. And trust me, that name barely scratches the surface of how horrifying this thing really is. While most monsters in mythology come after you with claws or teeth, the Raven Mocker operates on a completely different level. It doesn't need to touch you to destroy you. It feeds on something far more valuable than flesh and blood. It consumes your remaining time on Earth, literally stealing the years you had left and adding them to its own lifespan. Think about that for a second. Imagine lying in bed, sick and vulnerable, and some invisible creature sneaks into your room. You can't see it, you can't fight it, and by the time anyone realizes what happened, it's already taken what it came for. Your heart, both the physical organ and your spiritual essence, becomes its meal. The truly messed up part? You die thinking it was just your illness that finally won. Nobody knows you were murdered except for one type of person, the medicine men who possess the spiritual sight to see what others cannot. But before we get into how these guardians fight back, you need to understand exactly what a Raven Mocker is and why it's considered the most dangerous witch in Cherokee mythology. Picture this. An old, withered figure that looks like it should have died centuries ago. And maybe it did try to die, but it refused to accept that fate. Instead, it found a way to cheat death by stealing life from others. The Raven Mocker appears humanoid, draped in shadows that seem to cling to its form like a second skin. When you look into its eyes, assuming you have the spiritual power to see it at all, you're met with an otherworldly glow that burns with an intensity that doesn't belong in our world. Those eyes have witnessed countless deaths, have watched the light fade from hundreds, maybe thousands of victims over the centuries. Its hands end in elongated talons, sharp enough to tear through flesh with disturbing ease. But here's the thing that makes it even more unsettling. Most of the time, you'll never see any of this. The Raven Mocker possesses an ability that makes it completely invisible to ordinary people. It can walk right past you, stand beside your bed while you sleep, and you'd never know it was there. Only those with exceptional spiritual abilities, particularly Cherokee medicine men trained in the old ways, can pierce through this veil of invisibility. When a Raven Mocker decides to hunt, it transforms. Shedding its concealment, it takes to the night sky in a form that witnesses describe as a giant bird wreathed in flames, similar to a raven or crow, but much, much larger. Imagine looking up at the night sky and seeing what appears to be a meteor or falling star, except it's moving with purpose, banking and turning as it searches for its next victim. That fiery streak across the darkness isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a predator on the hunt. The sound it makes is something that survivors never forget. A bone-chilling screech tears through the air, mimicking the call of a raven, but twisted into something that makes your blood run cold and your heart seize up in your chest. Cherokee elders warn that if you hear this sound near your home, especially when someone inside is seriously ill, you need to act fast. That screech is an announcement. The Raven Mocker has found its prey and is closing in for the kill. Now, some accounts describe these creatures as solitary hunters, lone predators that stake out their own territories and jealously guard their hunting grounds. But other stories, darker ones, tell of Raven Mockers operating in groups. Imagine not one, but several of these entities coordinating their attacks, working together to overwhelm their victims' defenses. Some legends even suggest they might share a collective consciousness, pooling their malevolent energy to break through protective barriers and spiritual wards that might stop a single Raven Mocker in its tracks. The name itself carries multiple meanings that reveal different aspects of this creature's nature. Kâ'lanû Ahkyeli'skï is the most common title, the death spirit, but it's also known as Tsundajwai, which means he who covers his face. This name points to its deceptive nature, how it hides its true identity even while committing its terrible acts. Other names like Deathcaller and Heart Eater are more blunt, more direct about what this thing actually does. But why heart specifically? What makes the heart so important to the Raven Mocker's twisted feeding ritual? In Cherokee belief, the heart represents more than just a physical organ pumping blood through your body. It's the seat of your life force, the spiritual center where your essence resides. When a Raven Mocker targets someone, it's not interested in their flesh or blood. It wants that concentrated life energy housed within the heart. By consuming this essence, the Raven Mocker doesn't just sustain itself. It actually adds the victim's remaining lifespan to its own existence. Let's say you're sick, and according to the natural order of things, you would have recovered and lived another 30 years. A Raven Mocker attacks you in your weakened state, drains your heart's essence, and you die. That which just gained 30 additional years of life. Your decades become its decades. This is why Raven Mockers specifically target the sick and dying. These victims are vulnerable, their spiritual defenses weakened by illness, making them easy prey. Plus, from the Raven Mocker's perspective, it's practical. Why risk attacking someone strong and healthy when you can pick off the weak and still gain years of life? The truly insidious part is how they operate. A Raven Mocker slips into a home where someone lies sick. The family might be gathered around, holding vigil, praying for recovery. They see nothing unusual. They feel nothing wrong. Meanwhile, invisible to their eyes, the Raven Mocker moves through the room, approaches the bed, and begins its feeding. The victim might feel a sudden heaviness in their chest, a coldness that no blanket can ward off, but they're too weak to call out or fight back. Within moments, it's done. The Raven Mocker vanishes, leaving behind a body that appears to have simply succumbed to its illness. No wounds, no signs of foul play, just another person who lost their battle with sickness. Except it wasn't just sickness, it was murder. And the only ones who would know the truth are those rare individuals with the spiritual sight to perceive what others cannot. This is where the medicine men come in, and their role in this story is absolutely critical. Cherokee medicine men serve as more than just healers or spiritual advisors. They're warriors in an ongoing battle against forces that most people don't even believe exist. Their training takes years, sometimes decades, learning not just herbal remedies and healing techniques, but also the deeper mysteries of the spiritual world. They study the old ways, the ceremonies and rituals passed down through generations, specifically designed to combat entities like the Raven Mocker. When someone in the community falls seriously ill, a medicine man doesn't just show up to treat the physical symptoms. He understands that illness creates vulnerability, and vulnerability attracts predators from beyond the physical realm. So he establishes protections around the sick person, creating barriers that spiritual entities cannot easily cross. These defenses take many forms. Sacred herbs like sage or sweetgrass are burned, their smoke creating a purifying barrier. Prayers and chants are spoken in the old language, words of power that carry weight in the spiritual realm. Protective symbols might be drawn around the sick room, or physical objects blessed and placed at entry points to ward off evil. But here's where it gets really interesting. A medicine man with sufficient spiritual power can do more than just defend against a Raven Mocker. He can actually see it. While the rest of the family perceives nothing unusual, the medicine man watches as the invisible predator attempts to breach his defenses. He can track its movements, observe its tactics, and most importantly, he can fight back. There are accounts of medicine men engaging in direct spiritual combat with Raven Mockers. These battles happen on a level beyond normal perception, clashes of will and power where the medicine man uses his training and connection to benevolent spirits to drive the attacker away. And if a medicine man is particularly powerful, he can do something even more devastating. He can curse the Raven Mocker itself. According to the legends, when a medicine man successfully identifies a Raven Mocker and pronounces a curse upon it, that which is marked for death, not immediately but soon, Within a week, the raven mocker will die, its stolen years finally catching up to it all at once. Its body, sustained for so long by pilfered life force, simply gives out. This ability makes medicine men the only real threat to raven mockers, the only thing these creatures genuinely fear. Which brings up an important question. If raven mockers are so powerful, if they can turn invisible and steal life with such ease, why don't they just eliminate the medicine men first? Why not attack these guardians when they're vulnerable and remove the only obstacle to unlimited feeding? The answer lies in the nature of spiritual power itself. Medicine men aren't just skilled individuals. They're connected to something larger, a network of ancestral spirits and benevolent forces that watch over the Cherokee people. Attacking a medicine man isn't like attacking an ordinary person. It's like declaring war on the entire spiritual hierarchy that supports him. A raven mocker might be powerful, but it's fundamentally a parasitic entity, stealing power rather than generating it naturally. A medicine man draws from a wellspring of protective energy that's been building for generations. In a direct confrontation, the raven mocker is actually at a disadvantage. So instead, these creatures stick to what they do best, preying on the weak, the sick, the vulnerable. They're opportunistic hunters, not warriors. They avoid direct conflict with medicine men whenever possible, preferring to slip away and find easier targets rather than risk destruction. But there's another layer to this mythology that makes it even more disturbing. Remember how I mentioned that raven mockers sometimes take body parts from their victims? This isn't just random mutilation. According to Cherokee lore, these witches harvest specific organs and body parts to use in their dark rituals, to maintain their decaying forms and augment their powers. Some accounts describe raven mockers as creatures that should have rotted away centuries ago, held together only by stolen life force and grafted parts from their victims. Imagine encountering one of these beings in its true form, not the invisible spirit or the flaming bird shape, but the actual physical body it inhabits. A patchwork creature wearing flesh that doesn't belong to it, animated by dozens or hundreds of stolen lifespans, each one representing a person who died thinking they simply lost their battle with illness. Each piece of incorporated flesh carries with it a fragment of the victim's essence, creating a grotesque amalgamation of souls trapped within a single, horrifying form. This aspect of the raven mocker mythology serves an important cultural function within Cherokee society. It's not just a scary story to tell around the fire. It's a teaching tool, a way to explain the importance of protecting the vulnerable and honoring proper death rituals. When someone dies, Cherokee tradition includes specific ceremonies to help the spirit transition peacefully to the next world. These rituals aren't just symbolic. According to the beliefs embedded in the raven mocker legend, they're protective measures to ensure that the deceased essence isn't vulnerable to spiritual predators. The raven mocker also represents something deeper, a violation of the natural order. In Cherokee cosmology, there's a balance to existence, a proper flow of life, death, and rebirth. Every creature has its time, and when that time ends, accepting death is part of maintaining cosmic harmony. The raven mocker refuses this natural progression. It clings to life through unnatural means, disrupting the balance by stealing time that was meant for others. In this way, the raven mocker becomes more than just a monster. It becomes a symbol of the ultimate selfishness, the desire to preserve oneself at the cost of everyone else. This theme resonates because it touches on universal human fears. We all face mortality. We all wonder what lies beyond. And we all struggle with the injustice of death, claiming some while others live on. The raven mocker takes these natural concerns and twists them into something monstrous. It shows us what happens when the fear of death becomes so consuming that a person, or the spirit of a person, abandons all morality in pursuit of continued existence. And here's the really unsettling part. In Cherokee tradition, raven mockers aren't born, they're made. These are people who chose this path, individuals who learned forbidden techniques and performed dark rituals to transform themselves into these creatures. They traded their humanity for extended life, accepting that they would become predators feeding on their own people. Some stories suggest that powerful witches could become raven mockers after death, their spirits too twisted and malevolent to pass on naturally, instead lingering in this horrific form. This means that theoretically, anyone could become a raven mocker if they were willing to pay the price and had access to the forbidden knowledge. That friendly neighbor, the respected elder, even family members. Anyone harboring secret ambitions and dark desires could potentially transform into one of these creatures. This added a layer of paranoia to Cherokee communities, a recognition that evil doesn't always announce itself openly, but can hide behind familiar faces until it's ready to reveal its true nature. Fast forward to today, and the Raven Mocker legend continues to influence Cherokee culture and beyond. Modern Cherokee storytellers still share these tales, using them to teach younger generations about their heritage and the spiritual beliefs that shaped their ancestors' worldview. The story has also spread beyond Cherokee communities, capturing the imagination of horror writers, artists, and filmmakers who recognize the raw terror embedded in this mythology. What makes the Raven Mocker particularly effective as a horror concept is how it subverts our usual understanding of safety. Most monsters are things you can see coming. Vampires, werewolves, zombies, they're all physical threats that can be confronted with physical means. The Raven Mocker operates differently. It's invisible. It strikes when you're already at your weakest. And by the time anyone realizes what happened, you're already dead and it's already gone. There's no final confrontation, no chance to fight back unless you happen to have a spiritually gifted medicine man protecting you. For the vast majority of victims, there's just the slow realization that death is coming sooner than expected and no understanding of why. This taps into modern anxieties in ways that feel surprisingly relevant. We live in a world where invisible threats surround us constantly. Diseases we can't see, environmental toxins we can't detect, threats that hide behind ordinary appearances until it's too late. The Raven Mocker, created centuries before modern technology or medicine, somehow captures these contemporary fears. It reminds us that the most dangerous threats aren't always the ones we can see coming. The legend also raises questions about the cost of survival and how far someone might go to cheat death. In our modern world, we pour billions into life extension research, anti-aging treatments, and anything that promises to add a few more years to our existence. The Raven Mocker shows us the dark extreme of that desire. What it looks like when the wish to live longer becomes so powerful that it overrides every other consideration, including the lives and well-being of others. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting fear of death corrupt us into becoming something monstrous. Cherokee medicine men, the heroes of this story, represent the opposite principle. They accept that death comes for everyone eventually, but they fight to ensure that it comes naturally, in its proper time, rather than through the predations of spiritual parasites. They don't seek to extend their own lives indefinitely, but rather to protect the natural flow of existence, defending their communities from those who would disrupt that balance for selfish gain. In many ways, they embody the highest ideals of their culture: selfless service, spiritual strength, and acceptance of mortality while still fighting fiercely to protect life. The rituals and protections they employ aren't just theatrical elements of the story. They represent real Cherokee spiritual practices, techniques passed down through generations and still practiced by some traditional medicine people today. The burning of sacred herbs, the use of protective prayers, the maintenance of spiritual vigilance are all actual components of Cherokee healing traditions. The Raven Mocker legend preserves and transmits this knowledge, ensuring that younger generations understand not just the stories, but the practical spiritual techniques their ancestors developed. And that's really the genius of mythology like this. It's not just entertainment. It's a cultural survival mechanism, a way to encode important information, beliefs, and practices into memorable narratives that can be passed down through oral tradition. The Raven Mocker legend teaches multiple lessons simultaneously. It warns about the corruption that comes from fearing death too much. It instructs about the importance of protecting the vulnerable. It preserves knowledge about spiritual protection techniques. And it reinforces the value of medicine men and their role in the community. All of this is packed into a terrifying story about an invisible witch that steals hearts and adds your remaining years to its own twisted existence. So the next time you hear about someone dying unexpectedly from an illness, someone who seemed like they should have pulled through, maybe take a moment to consider the possibility that something deeper was at work. Maybe, just maybe, something invisible slipped into that room when no one was watching. Something old and hungry, searching for a few more years of stolen life. And maybe the only reason we don't recognize these predations is because we've lost the spiritual sight that would let us see what's really happening in the shadows. The Raven Mocker reminds us that reality might be far more complex and dangerous than what our ordinary senses reveal. It suggests that invisible battles happen all around us, fought by spiritual warriors protecting us from threats we'll never consciously perceive. And it warns that some evils don't announce themselves with fangs and claws, but slip silently through the darkness, stealing what's most precious while we sleep, completely unaware that we're being murdered rather than simply dying. If you want to learn about more terrifying creatures from Native American mythology and the deeper mysteries hidden in folklore from around the world, check out our next video.